What's up guys, welcome to Munchkins Gaming, where we take your gaming to the next level. This is Munchkins logging in to bring you another Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia video, and welcome back to another video guide. In today's video, we are going to take a look at Kadaj's Lost Chapter Lufenia Plus fight, and once again, before we do start, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. It does help the channel guys, and I really do appreciate it. And now without further ado, let's start this video. Alright guys, and as always, we'll start this off and how you're gonna deal with the Lufenia orb, which appears when the boss's HP reaches less than 80%. It will not disappear after that, and you get 6 Lufenia orb counters when the enemy takes damage from any debuff or effect pre the enemy's turn. You also get 2 Lufenia orb counters when the enemy takes damage from any debuff or effect that ticks down. So any traps or anything of that sort really does help. So characters that can do these are Maria, Core, Ace, Garnet, Trey, and even Vivi can do this. So a lot of like off-turn damage helps, and anything that basically is relevant to a trap or anything like that will definitely help you in dealing with this Lufenia orb. Alright, now let's move on how this fight works. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the recast ability, which basically will recover the boss, their Brave, and follows it up with a Brave plus HP attack. This will be a guaranteed hit, so you can't blind them and expect them to miss. And it will petrify your characters for 2 turns. Now, if your character is already petrified, they will use a different recast ability called Eruption, and I believe this is still a guaranteed hit. Basically, you can kiss your character goodbye, but honestly, the chances of you dying from the first recast ability, Evil Eye, is already very high. There's not a lot of characters that can actually survive this if you don't actually prevent the actual damage from happening. So yeah, it's pretty rough. Now when the boss's HP reaches less than 80, 50, and 30%, they will automatically refill their recast gauge, and basically, you know, it just lets them use their recast ability straight away in their next turn. Now the boss can also heal their own HP using Drain Eye, and when the boss's HP reaches less than 50%, they will actually remove all the debuffs, including frame debuffs. Now, an important thing to note here is that the boss is immune to debuffs that prevent action. So things like paralysis, confuse, and stuff like that isn't going to work on the boss, unfortunately. So a quick recap, and basically, if you get hit by Evil Eye, it's pretty much you're dead, but you have to prevent that incoming damage in order to survive. But you can't use debuffs that can paralyze or HP disable or prevent them from actually taking a turn. And so we ask ourselves at this point, how are we going to deal with this fight? Now, there's just a few options here. Of course, preparing yourself when the recast ability is up is a big factor in this fight. Making sure you can apply Setzer's freeze debuff is like one of the best things to do, or use protection like Warrior of Light's shield. These can prevent you from taking those damage. Unfortunately, like I said earlier, that the boss is immune to a lot of, like, you know, well, not a lot, all of the debuffs that prevents action. So there's not much you can do there. And something that I forgot to mention is you can't delay them either. So there's no actual point in trying to delay them, because they will get a turn and they are immune to that. So you are kind of limited in a way to deal with this fight, but I mean, Setzer is basically a highlighted character in this fight because, you know, he is synergized in this fight. So I would suggest, if you haven't pulled for Setzer already, you can go ahead and do that. And You can always do rebreaks as well. Those are other options for you. If you can continuously do rebreaks, like say if you have Vayne, you can actually push the boss's turns by quite a lot and make yourself more well prepared for the incoming damage. Alright guys, now let's talk about characters to bring. I've already mentioned a few like Vayne and stuff like that, but essentially you want to build your team with trap characters in mind. So you don't need a lot of trap characters, you only need one, or someone that can do off-turn damage with effects and stuff like that. It's mostly enough to make sure that the Lufenia orb is kept topped up. Now, as for cult characters though, there are some highlighted characters that I want to mention, which are Setzer, of course, if you don't really want to bring him in your main team, which honestly I would, but Setzer is a good cult character with the freeze debuff. Of course, the important thing to note here is, you know, when the boss reaches less than 50%, that it will remove all the debuffs, so just be careful around that time. X-Death is actually pretty good as well. Faris, Kurosame, Gabranth. There's quite a lot of characters that are really good calls, like Warrior of Light as well. I just want to highlight that call characters make up a lot of your deficits in your main team. Alright guys, now let's talk about party compositions. The first one that I would suggest is the team that I went with, Jet, Setzer, and Ace. There's a few variations of this. The main importance here is bringing Setzer and Ace, and Jet is basically replaceable. You can bring Cloud of Darkness or you know, Vayne, whoever you really want to bring along. Cult team I went with Amethyst Lion, Gabranth, and Kurosame, and support Lon and Rain and Shiva for my summon. That freeze is actually pretty good since Ramuh's, you know, paralysis I don't think works. You can correct me if I'm wrong that in the comment section, but you know, that is a debuff that prevents them from taking action. I honestly didn't really think about actually bringing Ramuh along now that Shiva is available, because Shiva is probably the best, if not, you know, one of the best, if not the best, I should say, summon in the game. Like, obviously Ifrit gives it a run for its money, but I really like Shiva as an overall summon. Now the next team I have for you guys is Bartz, Ace, and Porom. So kind of going back to some of the older characters here, Bartz is still very good as a support type character with his BT plus effect. Sephiroth, Gabranth, and Jack for the cult team in case you need the extra brave damage, of course. And Sephiroth's debuff actually is very helpful. You know, just taking off the huge amounts of brave that they actually get. Lon and Rain for the support, and Shiva for the summon. And the last team I have for you guys is Cloud of Darkness, Setzer, and Lon and Rain. This is going to do a ton of damage. For the cult team, I got Ace, Gabranth, and Kurosame, just extra HP damage plus extra little life support there. I went with Cloud of Darkness for the support on this one since you have Lon and Rain in your main team, and Shiva for the summon. Alright guys, so we're finally at the end of this video, and of course I want to give you guys my final thoughts before we leave. So overall, this fight doesn't really have a lot of mechanics, especially coming out of the Lufenia Plus for Divine Shiva, which there was a lot of things happening. In this case, you just really have to prevent that recast ability from hitting you, which there's a lot of ways, well, not really a lot, there's a few ways to do it, and they're quite specific, but it's not that hard to pull off. If you do have Shiva as your summon, you know, if you can get her to level 40, she can freeze as well, so that basically covers you for one of the percentage. I would recommend doing it like when your enemies are less than 50%, and you can just use, you know, or you can just use it much quicker and say use Setzer for later, since Setzer's one lasts for like 3 turns if you don't plan on bringing Setzer in your main party. But yeah, there's just, I don't think this fight is as hard as it was previously when the event first came out. I remember you had to use like gold frames, if I remember correctly. I don't remember that much from that fight, but you can correct me down in the comments below. I remember like having to use Sephiroth, or I mean, I did get Kadaj's kid and stuff like that, but yeah, the Lost Chapter, it's not as hard because there's a lot of characters that can deal with, you know, the Lufenia orbs, and it's all a matter of just bringing your whole team together, making sure to prevent, again, I want to emphasize, to prevent that recast ability from doing any damage at all. So I would probably put this in a little bit on the easier side when it comes to Lufenia Plus, and probably something that you know, beginner players will want to complete when it comes to Lufenia Plus. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it, all I can really say. I wouldn't say this fight is all that hard. And yeah, that's it for this video, guys. Please do remember to click like and subscribe if you haven't already. It does help the channel, guys, and I really do appreciate it if you can share this video as well for 2 other Dffoo players who are struggling to beat their first Lufenia Plus fight, and hopefully this video helps them. And check out my other videos as well on other Lufenia fights, and yeah, hopefully you guys can beat them. Follow me on Twitter and on Facebook at Munchkins Gaming. Leave down in the comments below what your team was, or if you think I left out something, please leave it all down in the comments section below. This is Munchkins logging off. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next level.